Greetings and welcome to my shop. My name is James Rojek. I have been the homeowner along with my wife of this property for the last 10 years, since May of 2015. And we have decided to sell it, as you may already know, because we are basically following the Lord's leading and in taking steps towards becoming missionaries. And so we're selling this house, but we're also getting rid of all of our possessions, every piece of furniture, every tool, every toy, everything. And we're basically moving into our van. We're going to be traveling throughout the United States and beyond for the next 24 months. And so everything we own, basically, we're leaving behind. And that potentially affects you as the new homeowner, because if there's something here that you like, basically you can have it. Like if you want this workbench or the kiddie workbench that pulls out underneath it, or you want a piece of furniture or anything hanging on the wall, basically it's yours. And so you can think of this as kind of a furnished house, but it doesn't have to be a furnished house. If you say, no, I don't want any of your stuff, get it all out, then we'll also go ahead and get it all out for you. So the purpose of this video is to bring you the type of detail that I would have liked to have when I was shopping for a house. I don't like wasting my time. I imagine you don't like wasting yours. And so perhaps in the next moments, I can walk you through the house and you can learn something that either confirms or denies that you'd like to take your time and come and look at it. The other thing that I want to try and convince you of is that this is one of the best maintained houses in the area. I started life as a mechanic. I worked my way up to engineer, spending 17 years at Volkswagen. And I currently own a 23-year-old Tacoma with 250,000 miles on it and a 15-year-old Honda Odyssey with 280,000 miles on it. I know how to take care of things. I also know the value in taking care of things. And when I bought this house, I would have liked to have known the owner to have an idea of whether he did or didn't maintain the property. And so in this video, I'm going to be showing you details about the house that may interest you from like a will it work from my family perspective, but also I'm going to be elaborating on how I've maintained the property, things that I've repaired. I'm also going to point out to you some things that need to be addressed either soon or in a couple years. And there's a couple problems with the house that I'm going to show you. And my desire is that when you hire an inspector and he comes and walks through this house and gives you a report, there'll be nothing on it that you haven't heard from me already. Maybe I'll fail. I'm not a professional inspector, so he might find something that I've missed. But I want to be as forthright and transparent and open and honest with you, because I don't want to waste your time as the buyer, because I don't want you to waste my time as the seller, and I want a smooth process. So if that sounds interesting to you, stay tuned and I'll walk you through the house. Hopefully you've already seen my first video, which is in a different YouTube link, which was 6 minutes long and it gave an overview of the house. I'm going to do my best not to repeat any of that general information and just stick to the details. So if you haven't seen that video, please go check that out first. This is the street. This is the view from inside the garage, looking left or north, and then looking south. This is a quiet street during the day, but rush hour, when people are leaving and coming into the neighborhood, it does get fairly busy. It's not a quiet dead end. People do speed a little bit faster than I like, but I've never felt that my children were in danger, and it's never caused any real problems for us. We have a good relationship with all of our direct neighbors: Bob, Sherry, Ron, Sebastian, Anna, and Cody. And in many cases, a good relationship with the people who live a couple doors down. It's a fairly quiet group of neighbors. They don't spend a lot of time outside, besides Ron, who likes to mow his lawn a lot. But they're very friendly. They've been good to my family, and they've all been here, I think, 7 or 8 years, if not more. So it's a very stable little part of the neighborhood. You may notice the driveway here is a little bit steep. So if you drop the ball right here in the garage, it will go all the way down the street and land about 50 houses down. My wife once chased a pumpkin all the way down there for our crying children. So that's something to keep in mind if you're going to work on your car in the driveway, like I sometimes do. But that aside, let's get into the garage. As you can see, we did not use our garage like a standard 2-car garage. We transformed it into a woodworking workshop. Some of these tools are already spoken for, but some of them are not. So there are things here that you see that I'm happy to leave behind for you. We took a lot of time to put in really robust shelving, and it's the type of shelving that doesn't have posts that go all the way to the ground. So these are all staying, unless you'd like to have them removed. It's really fantastic for storing things in like these black and yellow Home Depot boxes that are quite standard. They fit up on this top shelf all the way around the garage, 100%. Well, almost 100% except for above the door. So there's lots of really good storage in here. We have some gymnastic rings for exercise and an extension cord up there. The table saw also runs on 220. So there is a 220 outlet over here. There's a picture because there's a couple different styles. We also put in a lot of lights here in the garage. Besides the two fluorescents that you see here that were standard, we put in hanging LEDs there, over where the lathe used to be, and that one's been removed, sorry. And we also put in a lot of can lights that you'll notice. So the lighting here is really, really good, and it's all linked to the main switch there. We also have some really epic tool benches that are welcome to stay if you'd like them. There's one there, and there's also a mini one that pulls out underneath it for kids. So the back side is on wheels, the front side is not, and so you can wheel that out and your kids can do crafts out here with you. Also, there's a heavy-duty woodworking bench here. So that's a solid 3-inch top all the way across, so it has a lot of mass, and woodworking vise to the right of it there. We've gotten into the great outdoors, so we have rock climbing stuff in here. That's going with us, you can't have that. But a lot of things in the garage that you see could be yours if you would like to have them. The toolbox is going, the table saw is going, but a lot of the other small things are up for discussion and negotiation, all those kinds of things. There's many things we'd be happy to give you for free. There's some things that might become part of the negotiation, depending on how the inspector's report go and depending on your offer, things like that. But many of the things we're just happy to give you for free if it's a blessing to you. If you're a first-time homeowner, you'll be amazed at how many times you're going to Home Depot buying rake and shovel and cleaner and bottles and just a million little things. So we'd be happy for you to save a lot of hassle, time, and money by leaving behind all sorts of lubricants and oils and paints and brushes and fasteners and screws and all this kind of stuff. We're happy to leave those behind for you if that would be a blessing. All right, let's talk about the first appliance. So this is the water heater. This is the only original appliance from the house. It was installed in 1998, manufactured in March of 98, and we've been taking really good care of it. We drain the water every year. I put in a faucet to make that easier, so you just take a garden hose and attach it there. Makes the draining very easy. You don't get a drip of water into the garage. I also change the anode rod every 2 to 3 years, which you'll find right here. The sacrificial anode rod keeps the tank from rusting out. So in terms of longevity, it's most likely that this will be the next appliance to fail because it is original and nothing else in the house appliance-wise is original, but it's been very well maintained, and that makes a big difference regarding how long things will last. Years ago, I read that some new homeowners want the toilet seats replaced before they buy the house. And at first I laughed, but later I thought, you know what? I get it. So I have 2 boys. Sometimes they miss, and so I've ordered and ready to replace both toilet seats on the day we move out so that they'll be brand new for you. Whether you wanted that or not, it's on us. All right, we have 2 matching maples here in the front. I'm originally from Michigan, so I love maples because they're beautiful. And we've had these professionally trimmed 4 years ago so that they're in really good shape. There's no dead, they're not overcrowded, and they're beautiful. We love them. From the front of the house here, you'll see the front entry, and this is where our first potential issue comes in. I want to show you. When I bought the house 10 years ago, the inspector told me about this and told me to keep an eye on it to make sure it didn't get any worse. And the issue here is that this cement pad has sunk in relationship to the house. And you know that because of the wood that you can see there and some of the aluminum flashing that you can see there. Our inspector's comment was, this is very common, and it happens because the ground underneath that little pad wasn't as compacted as the house itself. He told me to keep an eye on it, take measurements, and if it got worse, to pay someone to come and lift it, but if it remained the same, not to bother. So I did take measurements. I don't remember what they were, but after several years, I continued to watch it, and there was no change. So your inspector will probably write that up, rightfully so, but you already know about it now, so no surprises. Second thing is there's a little crack here in the siding. I don't remember how it happened, I think maybe a temperature change or something. I filled it with epoxy, but it does look a little bit ugly. Of course, you could replace this, but one of the issues with replacing siding is you don't necessarily get perfect color matching, so I just opted for the epoxy. Again, nothing big, but I'd rather you hear it from me than hear it from an inspector and be surprised. The roof, like almost every other roof in this neighborhood, was replaced in 2012 via an insurance claim because there was a massive hailstorm that came through. The roof is in excellent shape. I was up there the other day inspecting things. There's no issues, at least not to my eyes. I'm not a roofer, but I am pretty handy. And so you have a 13-year-old roof, which should last you many, many more years. Nothing to worry about there for a long time. You may have noticed in the other video that none of the windows have screens. That's because in the winter, we like to take them out. It lets more sunlight in, warms the house a little bit, and just makes the winter a little bit more cheerful. We have all the screens under the house. We have them labeled, and we normally install them every April or May. So if you'd like, I'll have them installed for you when you take possession of the house, or I'll leave them out for you. It's your choice. Okay, to the HVAC. So this HVAC was also installed in 2012. I have the original receipt. It's also on the manufacturing date. And this HVAC is what's called an all-in-one. What that means is that everything sits outside the house. There's nothing that sits inside the house like you might find in a place like Michigan. It's also a natural gas furnace. And what that means is that there's no heat pump. You may be familiar with heat pumps here in the South, and they work pretty good because the temperatures never get too cold. But when they do get cold, the auxiliary electric heating has to turn on, and it normally skyrockets your utility bill, not your natural gas, but your electricity. So we've been really happy with this furnace. In the summer, warmer months, our natural gas costs around $20 a month, and that's because it's running the water heater. In the cooler months, when we're running the furnace or the fireplace, it can go up to about $150. So 20 bucks in the warm weather, 150 bucks in the cool weather. The electric bill is almost the exact opposite. In cooler months, it's only about 40 bucks because it's just electricity and the stove and the dryer. But then in the summer when the AC is running, it goes up to about 140 bucks. And if you'd like, I can show you those records. I'm happy to do that. It's very easy, but that's how the HVAC works. So it too has been meticulously maintained by myself. And what that means is that every year or so, I would take off this top cover. I would clean inside of it, which I recently did, knowing that the house was going to be sold. And I also took a garden hose and flushed the condenser coils in this direction so that the dirt and the debris comes out. That makes a huge difference for the longevity of the machine. And it's one of those things you really want to keep up. So even if you're looking at a house that has a newer HVAC, if it hasn't been maintained, it may not last as long as this one. So maintenance on these is really important. Over here we have a little firewood rack that we put in several years ago, cemented into the ground, freestanding, independent from the fence. And that's because we love having campfires down in the forest, which you'll see later. And we pick up local firewood, let it dry here in the sun. One thing I intended to do is put a little roof on this. That's actually why those posts are still protruding here. So that's a project you might want to undertake. Somehow I just never got around to it, and it never made it to the priority list. Here at the back of the house, we have a compost pile that doesn't get used to often anymore, but we used it a lot in the past. And this is actually our fence belonging to us. We did take out the section of fence from there to there because we wanted to have an uninterrupted view into the forest, and we wanted the forest to feel more like an extension of our backyard rather than this separate space. This is also where the septic system runs. And to that point, I'll show you basically where you're going to have to dig if you ever need this septic tank serviced. I have precise measurements with a tape measure off of this corner of the house, but it's roughly right there. I dug it up about 5 years ago and had it pumped. And one of the things we're going to leave you with is $400 in cash on the kitchen counter if you buy the house, so that if you like, you can have the septic tank pumped before you move in or after you move in. There's something pretty gross about a toilet backing up, but somehow it feels grosser if it's not your waste. And so if that's important to you, we just want to kind of honor that. We're going to leave you $400 cash. It cost us $385 some years ago. You'll have to dig it up, but I buried a 55-gallon drum in the ground, and that means you only have to dig up about 10 inches of earth, and then you'll just remove the barrel and get access to the hatch. So if you're not familiar with how these things work, that probably sounds like French to you, but believe me, it'll save you a ton of time. I think the official classification would be crawl space, not basement, but it's actually not a crawl space at the back of the house here because the house is built on a hill. So we put a lot of effort into this crawl space because we wanted the garage, when I say we, I mean me, wanted the garage to be available as a workshop. So we put in lighting, and there's a light switch right here along with an outlet. We took some of the old kitchen cabinets and put them down here, and we also put in shallow shelving. Now, an inspector may tell you that it's unwise to have wooden shelving next to the cinder block because of termites and things like that. And I won't argue with that. That very well may be true. What I will tell you is that these shelves have been down here for 7 years, and we have never had any termites. For many years, we paid for professional termite service, and for several years, I did the inspections myself after I learned what to look for from the inspector. Never had any issues with termites. So I won't get into an argument with the inspector, but I will tell you about my personal experience here at the house for all of these years. Okay, and a lot of these things, again, we're more than happy to leave behind for you. It's amazing how much you can spend at Home Depot when you buy a house. We have most of the paint colors from the house either here in gallons, or I have some small plastic tubs that I kept small samples in, about a pint's worth. And so if you need to touch up the walls, there's almost always a little bit of touch-up paint. If you'd like to have this pressure washer and the lawnmower, even the bikes, all of those things could be left if you were interested in them. This is a little propane heater that we put on the back deck. I intentionally lowered it so you could be warmed while you're sitting instead of standing. Ladder, rake, shovels, all of these things, again, can be left for you if you think they would be a blessing. Yeah, and there's some kindling for the campfires. And yeah, this is just a really nice space instead of having to put all of these things in a shed, or instead of having to put all of these things in your garage. So you can use this however you like, but at least you have it. All right, heading back this way towards the house. We did something a little bit odd, but amazing, and that was putting in an outdoor shower. There's hot and cold water running to that guy. We used copper to PEX fittings and drilled holes through the wall there, as you'll see. What's nice is that this space is kind of tucked in a little bit, and so when you're actually standing in the shower, if there's leaves on the tree, then no one can see you because this wall is right here and the deck is here. On top of that, we've only ever seen this neighbor outside maybe 5 times in 5 years, if that, and we have literally not once ever seen that neighbor outside. So you really have the place to yourself, and it's nice to come out here and shower at night or whatever, and it's especially nice if you have children who are being children and getting filthy. You have them shower outside. All right, moving up to the deck. The deck is, I don't know how old it is, but when I was buying the house 10 years ago, the inspector told me, he said, hey, look, the deck is still in salvageable shape, but you need to take care of it pronto. So I rented a sander, I sanded the surfaces, and then we put deck over down 10 years ago. And then we repeated that within the last year, because although the deck is totally stable, there's not a single area that I wouldn't jump. There are some boards that are less than perfect. So it's no spring chicken, but it's also nothing that requires your immediate attention. When I bought the house, I noticed how much of a beating this area was taking whenever it was raining, and it seemed like everything was getting kind of moldy, well, not moldy, but full of mildew and stuff like that. And I realized it's because they neglected to add a gutter up there. So there's a gutter here, gutter there, but nothing there. So I added these strips. I forget the official name, but they basically divert, they're probably called diverters. They divert the water either to the left or right. It made a huge difference on the amount of water and moisture that was getting there. And it also was the reason that the back door rotted out. So I replaced the back door, and that's totally fine now. But if you're buying a different house in the neighborhood, you might want to think about adding these diverters to places like this where the homeowner, excuse me, the home builder didn't do that. All right, one other small issue we have is a crack in the siding here. This was from a water balloon, believe it or not, coming back on a massive slingshot. Long story short, having kids is a blast. This is sealed now with epoxy, so it's totally watertight. I admit it's a bit ugly. So if you wanted to replace this with a piece of color matched siding, you certainly could. It's not a big job, but I never got around to it. This only happened about 10 months ago, so it wasn't on my priority list. I'm also not a huge fan of changing siding because it seems like the color matching is never quite right, but that's up for you. In this case, ugly but functional. All right, the bridge to the swing set looks kind of bad, but it's because a buddy of mine gave me some old paint, and as it turns out, it was so old that it didn't stick too well. So this is not as bad or rotted as it looks. It's only about 4 years old, totally solid, absolutely nothing to worry about, but the paint does look kind of bad, so you might consider repainting that if you want to keep the swing set for a long time. And if you don't like the fact that there's a slide going off of that, no worries. I'll take that out for you. I already have spindles that were painted at the same time that these were painted, so they color match just fine, and it can just look like any normal deck if you're not interested in that. All right, next we're gonna move on to the treehouse. So these tree houses were built between myself and a friend who framed houses. So they were well made, well constructed. There is one thing you might be curious about, and it's the tree itself. I'm going to walk over to that tree and tell you a little bit about it. All right, I changed my mind. It's easier to show you over here. When I bought this house 10 years ago, I walked around the base of that tree and I could see that it was not a healthy tree. I asked the inspector his opinion. He actually wrote it up in the inspection report, and he encouraged me to keep an eye on it over the years. So that was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, that tree was not doing well. And today it's also not doing well. Now, when we decided to build a tree house on that tree, we took some time. We spoke actually to a professional to decide if it was wise or not. And here's the counsel that we got, and here's what we did. We paid a professional tree company to come out, climb the tree, and trim away every single dead branch. What you may not be able to properly discern from here is it's actually like a two-trunk tree. There's a trunk that goes up to the left, and then there's one that's right in front of it. I will walk down and show you that in a minute. They topped the trunk closest to us, and they trimmed every other branch that wasn't producing leaves, because this was in June of 2020. Now, what really amazed me, I expected to have to bring tree trimmers out here every 2 years to repeat the process, but last year, in April, all the way through the fall, every single one of the branches you can see right now was bearing fruit or foliage or whatever you would say. So even though it doesn't look that great, and it's definitely not a healthy tree, and it is in the process of dying, I expect that all of those branches will again, for the 5th year in a row, still be alive, still bearing leaves and foliage and all of that stuff. So it's something to keep an eye on. I'm sober enough to say that, but it's not anything to be petrified over. My suggestion would be in 6 months, in June or something like that of 2025, take a look and have someone come and trim the branches if they are over the treehouse and if they're not healthy and green like they were in April and June of 2024. All right, let's walk down there. So from this angle, you can see it starts off as a single trunk and splits. And then you can probably see that the right one is chopped. So we had that all done professionally. You can get a sense of the tree. But I was up in the tree house today and have been many times. You can go into every single corner of this tree house as an adult. I'm 170 pounds. You can jump, you can walk. It's completely solid. There's nothing to be afraid of. I've recently climbed the rope ladder on that tree, the rope net on that tree, and that ladder. Everything is safe. My kids play on it all the time. I care far more about my kids' safety than some stupid treehouse. So believe me when I tell you, my personal evaluation is that it's totally safe, and the reasons for that are what I already explained. If you're interested in the canoe or any of our kayaks, that's also up for discussion. That might be something we would negotiate for a little bit because we have some friends who'd like them. But we'd also be willing to throw some in for free, probably if you said pretty please and made us a nice offer on the house or something like that. So keep walking around the house. I'm going to take you down into the forest, but we're going to do that at the very end because that's pretty much the best part of the whole thing. We'll finish with the best. All right, swing set. Oh, I meant to mention when I was under the house, there is regularly a black snake that lives under the house. I've seen him probably once every other summer, and I killed it one year and regretted it because shortly thereafter I saw signs of a mouse. And if your inspector is really good, he may notice that there is a critter who chewed a hole in there. That hole is about 6 years old, and we've not had any new activity since then. So if he sees that and says, oh, the house might be infested, I just thought you might like to know the history on that. When I was at Volkswagen, I got involved in fire investigation because of my line of duty. And the number one cause of home fires is dryer exhaust passageways. So if you're not familiar, basically all that warm air that dries your clothes has to get out of the house somehow. And it comes out through something often that looks like this. And those are supposed to be cleaned regularly. Some manufacturers say once a month, which is a little crazy. Others say every 6 months. Some say every year. I clean this out once every 6 months on average, sometimes a little earlier, sometimes a little later. It's very important for the performance of your dryer, the longevity of your dryer, and the safety of your family. So even if you don't buy this house, take a look, grab yourself a flashlight, and look up into these things as you're walking around and see if they're clear. Normally they will be completely caked with lint that needs to be cleaned out. And although that's a job you can do yourself, it is the kind of job you want done regularly, not just once in a while, because it affects the longevity of the motor inside your dryer and how much heat gets built up in there. Well, one of the best, but also one of the strangest things that we have here at the house is an outdoor sink. That's because I'm a mechanic and I work on stuff. And when the tornadoes hit here in April of 2020, I got involved in fixing chainsaws and generators for people who needed trees cut up and who needed power. And long story short, I ran a hot and a cold water line from under the house, under the ground here, which is sort of grown back over, of course, out to the sink. We also ran electrical, as you'll see here, with a GFCI, and I made this bench out of basically 6-inch decking material. So it is super solid in the ground in 4 places. You have a hot and a cold water spigot here. So if you want to wash your car with scalding hot water, you can do that. The drain here goes into the ground. We kind of built a pit and then used some of that cloth that you use to let it sieve into the ground without getting all mucked up. And yeah, we have soap, so hot, cold soap, and then we have a hot water sprayer. I'm just telling you, I know this looks a little hillbilly or something like that, but if you're handy and you're ever working outside, or if you like to garden, or if you have kids, you're gonna laugh at how amazing it is to have an outdoor sink. We use it probably more than we use the one in the kitchen. It's so awesome, and people like my dad and others make fun of us for it, and then they start using it, and they're just like, oh my word, this thing is awesome. So yeah, that's that. Since this house was built in 1998, it stands to reason that there were several homeowners who wanted to have cable TV. And this was from basically the cable TV providers coming in, taking some screws and screwing their boxes to the house and then leaving it behind. And by the time we moved in, there was 2 different boxes from 2 different manufacturers. I don't know, AT&T and Infinity or something like that. And so I removed them. They weren't installed well. They were crooked and they were no longer functional. And I was concerned about water intrusion in the house. So I pulled those boxes off. I filled the holes with several layers of silicone for these bigger holes. They're still totally solid, no water intrusion. I chamfer the holes so there's no burrs. It's ugly, I can happily admit that. If you want to pay for the siding to be replaced, you go for it, but I didn't think it was worth it. I did want them sealed and not letting in any water, but I wasn't too worried about the aesthetics because this isn't exactly the pretty part of the house. Anyhow, it's something that the inspector might point out to you, and I'd rather you have heard it from me. Perhaps the last thing you want to know about the outside of the house is that the trash picks up on Thursday, costs us $11 a month, and after having tried several different of the vendors, I would go with C&M if I were you. Sorry folks, the cool garage and backyard are over with. All we have left to show you is the boring old house. So come on in. Just a joke there, that's a man's perspective. So obviously this is the kitchen, but before we get to that, I'll show you this little utility area right here best I can. The washer and dryer are 11 years old. They've been maintained by an OCD maniac, as you may have come to understand. They are staying with the house if you'd like them, and if you don't want them, we'll get them out of your hair. We have been very cautious to maintain the washer on the bottom. One of the most important things about these is to clean out this seal, and basically you do that with 50-50 bleach and water, and then you have to, every couple months, you have to remove this, you have to drain this, and you have to remove the filter and clean that out so that nasty mildewy junk doesn't build up, and then you run a tub clean cycle with CLR. I basically do that every month, and if someone's leaving behind their washer and dryer, take a look to see if they've been doing that. On the dryer side of things, of course, emptying the lint trap is the standard, but I also basically every couple months will scrub down there with a vacuum. I don't know if it's going to be easy enough for me to show you with a light. Yeah, look at that. Very clean. So, you know, I don't know if the old adage is true that you can determine how clean the kitchen is in a restaurant by looking at its bathroom, but I do feel like there is a correlation between how people have taken care of a home and how clean it is when you look with a flashlight in certain places. So I would encourage you, take a flashlight, and as you walk through homes, look underneath appliances, look in between appliances. That'll give you a small hint as to how they've taken care of it. And having worked on cars for many years, I can tell you, although not every customer who keeps their car clean changed the oil and took care of it, there were no customers I ever met who had a filthy car but took care of the engine. It's one of those things. You got to keep it clean before you keep it maintained, and so that's a good indication. You might even buy a house from some weirdo who used to work in production and made his own laminated card for how to maintain the dryer. Nerd alert. Anyhow, moving on. This little freezer is also welcome to stay if you would like to have that, along with some custom shelving. On this side, we have the custom pantry that I built for my wife. We took off the door, we took off that nasty white wire rack, and I built her custom shelves for all of her things, little narrow ones for the spices, bigger ones for bigger things, so on and so forth. There's a light that comes right down the middle. It's just an awesome place to gather supplies if you do a lot of cooking and cleaning at the house. This Kenmore fridge is 9 years old and works perfectly. I'm not a fan of the design for the condenser coils. They're very difficult to clean, but I have cleaned them over the years, and in preparation for the house sale, I did a really deep cleaning. So you can see there's like no dust there at all, despite being 9 years old. And that's really important because the dustier they are, the less airflow you get across the condenser coils. Your compressor, which just kicked on ironically, has to work harder, and it will run up your electric bill for one, but it will also lead to an early failure on the fridge. This particular fridge is 9 years old, and it's staying with the house. This dishwasher is 8 years old, and to be honest, needs to be cleaned, at least the front surface of it. We are quite regular with running like a cleaning cycle in here to keep it nice and tidy in there. I will admit one thing which bugs me is probably every third load or fourth load, there's a couple drips that come from the corner. I've been trying to figure it out. I kind of haven't been able to. It's kind of driving me nuts, but it comes and goes, and it's just a couple drips. And although I don't like it, yeah, it just never made its way all the way to the top of the priority list. So I want you to know that from me, because once you buy this house, I don't want you to have a bunch of surprises and feel like we've kept something from you. All right, we put in a pull-out trash can because who wants to use that corner of the counter space anyways? And we put in a reverse osmosis filtration system about 6 years ago. So if you don't like the taste of city water and chlorine like us, you may appreciate this. And this is also piped all the way to the fridge. That's what that white cable is right there, or hose is there, so that the ice and water coming out of here is also purified. The system requires a little bit of maintenance. Every year, you have to replace 3 of the 5 filters. You'll see them right there, the 3 that need to be replaced. I just did it this week for you, and I actually have next year's filters already purchased and sitting right there with the tools so that next year it doesn't cost you 42 bucks. However, subsequent years, you'll want to change those in January or February to keep the system working properly, and that'll cost you about 42 bucks and about an hour of your time. The ugly duckling, the stove, not matching the rest of the appliances, and I don't really know how old this was. A friend of ours was upgrading their stove and offered us this because it has the flat top instead of those spiral burners, which we hated. My poor wife has done more baking on this than most women will do in their entire life. She's been begging for it to finally break, but every time it does, I just fix it. So someday it's going to break for realsies, and you'll get to replace it with something stainless steel. But for now, it's what you get if you buy the house. Yeah, all of the pots and pans are hanging on this cool rack that I built. That can stay with the house if you'd like, and if you don't like, we'll take it out. Most of these homes had one nasty central fluorescent light. We put in can lighting in all the places where you really want it, and oh my word, did it make a difference. So whether you buy this house or not, I would really recommend an upgrade like that. Another little upgrade, which is really nice, is these outlets that have USB-A's right here, so you can charge your phone without taking up an outlet. Little things like that. We put a couple of those in the house that you may like. And kitchen eating area. All I'm going to say here, again, if you're interested in having this furniture for yourself, that's totally great. We're happy to give you that beautiful wall unit that belonged to my great-grandmother, and this table, which also has a leaf upstairs, and this leaf can be taken out. The coffee cart and lots of little things like this are yours if you buy the house. All right, confession time. There is one thing that I really screwed up on about 9 years ago when I was an exhausted father of 3, not getting enough sleep at night, and that is when I put in this floor. The previous floor was really ugly and difficult to clean, and so for one long weekend I put in a new floor for my wife, but I made a calculation error. And that calculation error led to that line that you can see right there. It's hideous, it's embarrassing, and all my engineer friends make fun of me. But it wasn't worth it for us to fix it. If it is for you, I totally get it. A new floor costs about 600 bucks if you do it yourself, more if you pay someone. So again, the purpose of this video is really to be open and honest and show what the house is and what it isn't. And these are things you're going to discover for yourself when you walk through it, or you pay an inspector to check it out. And so we just want to be forthright and point them out to you ourselves. All right, in the living room, you're going to see now something that I wish I'd done on day one, and that was open up the living room to the kitchen. This used to be walled over, and we didn't realize what we were missing until we took it down. There is one downside though, and that is we lost the space for the microwave. Ironically, the previous homeowner didn't tell us that the microwave was broken, so we discovered that on our own. We actually never got it fixed and just learned to live without one. So if you're a heavy microwave user, you're going to want to think about where you might put it. There are several options, but the primary spot that the home builder designed for it is now gone. And that's something I'm not going to put back up for you, the wall. All right, moving on to the fireplace. This is the motto that has governed our family for many years. It's why my wife stays at home and homeschools the kids. And it's why I take being a dad so seriously. But you didn't come here for that. You came here for the tour. So the only thing you need to know about this ventless gas fireplace is that it works awesome and heats up the house wonderfully, but the igniter broke. So if you come in close, you may notice that there used to be something screwed right there. That was an igniter button and the gas valve. The igniter broke and was not serviceable, and I thought it was stupid to replace the whole thing just for an igniter. So we bought one of these little USB rechargeable zappers. And all 3 of my kids, 8, 10, and 12, can do this. It's not complicated. You just lower him to the pilot light, give it a zap, and get the whole thing started. And if you want, you can remove this log as you get to know that position. Or if you want, you can replace the whole thing. One of the great joys and challenges of having children is discovering all of the things that they get into. And once my son was sitting on the floor here, and he was playing drums with some Sharpies. And somehow the cap came off, and he started throwing Sharpie ink up onto the ceiling. So if you notice these spots up there that are a little bit not color matched, we're not trying to cover up any water intrusion or leaky roof or anything like that. We thought that a off-color white was slightly better than a bunch of black marks on the ceiling. And eventually we thought that we would scrape this popcorn and repaint the whole ceiling, but we haven't gotten around to it. We're not going to get around to it before we leave. And so again, just so you understand what is the history behind this paint job, I wanted you to know the story and not think that it was anything sinister like a leaky roof. One of the super nasty things that we discovered in buying a house was how much filth was in the vents. The vents that bring you fresh air that you breathe. So we regularly clean these things out, maybe once a year, something like that. We have a spiral brush that's used for cleaning out the dryer vent, and we'll send him down there and agitate anything that has stuck, and then we'll vacuum it out. Yeah, maybe bring a flashlight with you on your home tours. Pop one of those bad boys out and see what you find. It may be quite disturbing. And again, just trying to show that we've taken really good care of this place and that there won't be a lot for you to do when you move in terms of getting it clean, tidy, and ready for your family. Let's head up to the attic. This is actually the very first project I ever undertook at the house. I realized that storage would make our normal life here on the main floor a lot better. So I put in some nice shelving. These are big sheets of particle board, and there's enough space up here to store Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, and birthday decorations. We also have all of the closet doors for the house, and we don't like closet doors. We think they get in the way, but you might, and so if you want to put them back on, you can, because we saved them. There's also the leaf for the kitchen table, and there's kind of just screwed down flooring here, so you don't have to worry about anyone falling through the ceiling into the living room. We also put in lights. There used to just be an itty bitty light here, which was super annoying. One thing an inspector might point out is that that connection perhaps should be in a junction box. So if that just terrifies you, which it shouldn't, I'll put it in a junction box for you, but it's been sitting like that for 6 or 7 years, totally fine. I would suggest adding insulation to this space. I've more or less racked my brain the last 10 years thinking, should I do it? Should I not do it? Every time I got ready to do it, it felt like we were getting ready to move, and so I never did. But I think it probably would be a worthwhile investment. It would save you some money. So that's something you might want to look into. There's nothing wrong with this insulation, but more insulation is more better. Just a joke there. Over there, you have the Wi-Fi router. I did some research of the best place to hang that guy so that you get the best reception. That's hanging over kind of the kitchen right as it goes into the living room. It gives really good Wi-Fi range throughout the whole house. And whoever you go with, we went with EPB. That's maybe an ideal spot to get it out of your hair and get you ideal reception. That router's been up here for 4 or 5 years. The heat won't kill it, although it does get hot up here. And that's why I added this insulation barrier. The guy who inspected my house told me that should be the very first job that I did. I put it off for 3 years, and by the time I did it, I was kicking myself because I had been a total fool. They only cost like $40, but they make an enormous, enormous difference in keeping the cold up here in winter and the heat up here in summer. You will not believe when you unzip this thing and come into the attic, the temperature difference is insane. So even if you don't buy our house, if you buy a house with an attic and it doesn't have one of these, spend the $35 on Amazon, get one. First door on the left is the front room. This is sort of east facing. This is the room where you can see the sunrise every morning. There's really nothing to share in here in terms of issues or upgrades, but I'll just show the room a little bit more in detail. This is a room that we did scrape the popcorn on. So the ceiling is smooth and it's been repainted. This is the smallest of the 3 closets at 4 feet. And again, we have those doors upstairs if you're interested in having those. All of the furniture in this room can be had if you'd like it. This chess table is really cool. We bought this in Germany. This opens up and all the chess pieces are underneath. It's from the mid-1800s. It's just a nice place to have a morning cup of coffee and read or something like that. There are blinds on the windows. We preferred a really minimalistic style, so they come all the way down, but they tuck away and don't impede any light. Next, I'll take you to the children's room. Peter, Rebecca, and Paul. There's a board up there for rock climbing. You can do pull-ups and you can practice having really strong fingers. Before we go there, I'll just show you the boring linen closet really quick. It's a boring linen closet. All right, the kids share a room, and we have these cool loft beds that my dad and I built with finger joints, and they have cables that run up to several ceiling joists connected via some strong wood. Anyhow, we're more than happy to leave these for you if you think your kids would enjoy them, if you have kids. And we do have railings. We have a railing to go here and a railing to go here. We no longer have the, well, we have two railings. So two of the three can have railings on them if you'd like, but our kids learn not to fall out of bed. There's these cool bookshelves that I custom built, kind of like you'd see in a library where they display the book, lamps, and then we have all this string in the room that runs from eye to eye, and it just created kind of an infrastructure for the kids to build forts and things like that. The floor is completely empty. Every once in a while, they like to sleep down low, so we have our guest twin mattress down here. That's what that's for. Other than that, it's a pretty standard room. There is an issue with this window. It was an issue that came pointed out to me during the inspection 10 years ago, and we just decided not to fix it. So this window is perfectly clear. As you can see, this one has a leak between the two panels of glass. There's supposed to be a vacuum in there for insulation purposes, but you may be able to see it's a little bit foggy. That's not because we haven't cleaned it. That's because there's a little bit of air inside. So that probably will get written up on your inspection like it was on mine. And if it's really important to you, then we'll give you some money back so you can have, Polly, we'll give you some money back so that you can have it replaced. But it didn't really bother us, and it certainly didn't bother the kids. All right, this is the bigger 6-foot closet, along with this custom organizer that I built and is hanging off the ground so you can still vacuum. That's welcome to stay if you would like that. And then kids, would one of you jump down and show us the cool outlets that we have?
Sure, I'll do it.
Come on down, Bex. Yeah, the secret spots. So because the house was built in 98, it still has some of these. Hang on one sec, Bex. It still had some of these in the house for, telephones and cable TV. And I had this cool idea on how to use those for something cool. So Rebecca's going to show you how those work now. Can I see that? Basically, I just took some of these panels and super glued the screws in, and then we put magnets in here and cleared out the box. Now, this was never a box that could electrocute you. It was just for cable TV or your telephone. But there's several of these hidden throughout the house where you can keep your valuables, or your kids can hide things from each other. It's just kind of a little quirk, but it's also fun as well. So, all right, let's move on from the kids' room. All right, one other note on the HVAC here. This is where you would change your furnace filter. And after doing some research and talking to some friends, I decided to go with a reusable furnace filter. So it has a metal frame, and this is actually washable. So what you can do is you can vacuum this a couple times a month if you want to get the bulk of the dust out. But then you take it outside and you rinse it with a garden hose and then let it dry in the sun. And it does a great job capturing the dust, but you don't have to store or buy furnace filters. It costs way more than a normal furnace filter, but in the long haul, and of course in your case, if you buy the house, then it saves you money from replacing furnace filters every couple weeks or months. All right, the so-called purple room, as it's known in our house. No prizes if you guess why. Yeah, all of the Lego, the sorter table here can be left if your kids like Legos. It's basically just a long trough, if you will, with these movable dividers. And then we use wedges. In this case, my children put the wedge in backward, but we use these wedges to wedge the dividers in place once you have, all of the reds sorted out or whatever. And it's just a nice way to keep Legos organized. There's also, if I'll bring you in here tight, there's also all of these bins that slide in and out of different sizes. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's 10 of those little bins. So if you have Lego lovers in your family, you're welcome to keep that when we move out. We have this reading nook, which we're also happy to leave for you if you'd like. It's on a swivel up there, which is rated to, I think, 25 kilonewtons, so all super safe. Those are hammock grade carabiners, so more than safe. And basically, up there in the attic, you'll see that that eye bolt connects to a piece of wood that goes across several ceiling joists. So that's been up there for 8 years. Never had any trouble with that at all. This is the biggest of the closets at 7 feet, I believe. And again, those closet doors are upstairs. It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you can see there's lots of light pouring in here. That's because this is a south-facing window. So this is a great room with wonderful lighting. Only downside is the HVAC is right there. So if you're real sensitive to noise, you might hear that coming on, but it's a great room otherwise. All right, let's look at the master. All right, the master bedroom is where my wife and I spend a lot of our time. We have this special switch. We use this, you can actually control when the light comes on and off. We actually use that as an alarm for a while because one of us, myself, is not real good at getting up in the morning. Anyhow, that's beside the point. So this room was a little big, in our opinion, for just a bed and dresser. So we turned it into kind of a multi-use space. Over here we have some IKEA shelving units with an industrial style top. That can stay if that's something you'd like. In fact, the computer tower that I built 4 years ago and the printer and the monitor and speakers, those can all stay. If you'd like to have those, we'll just format it for you. The Cricut, if you're not familiar with this is a mini plotter that you can do some really cool stuff with, art and yeah, all sorts of art things. I'll let you Google that. If you'd like to have that, you can have that too. Over here, we have sort of the sewing area. Also, we did some crafting stuff over here. There's a sewing machine, and then I do some electronics, soldering, Arduino. Anyway, all this can stay if you'd like to have it. And this is built in. So I'll just bring you down here. This is built in. It's basically floating. So that's really nice when you go to vacuum. There's nothing to vacuum around like table legs. It just floats. And we're building some lightsabers right now. Anyhow, that can all stay if you'd like to have that. And this wall's kind of plain. We took down a big picture that we had there. My aunt wanted it back, so it looks a little ugly. And this wall gives you an idea of what's important to us. There's one little thing on the ceiling I want to show you. You may notice dead center there is a spot that is not quite white. And basically I painted that spot white about 8 years ago. And that was because I didn't notice it when we went through the house. But once you're laying down and looking up at the ceiling, I noticed some discoloration. And I don't know the story behind it. I went in the attic to make sure there was no roof leak or anything like that. There wasn't any evidence that there had been. So I think, I don't know, maybe a kid threw something up there, like one of those sticky, squishy balls, and it left a bunch of residue, and it just looked bad. So I didn't have the exact color white, but I basically painted over it. And I waited about a year because I wanted to make sure it wasn't growing, getting worse. But if you see that, we're not trying to cover anything up again. It just was a slight improvement over what was there. Although what would be even better is to scrape all this popcorn and repaint. But I'll leave that for you. All right, moving on to the master bath. We have a little chin-up bar there if you want to keep those biceps strong. So the jacuzzi tub works perfectly. We don't use it that often, but when we do, afterwards, we always give it a really good rinse. We run the jets with about a cap full of bleach, chlorine bleach, so that mildew doesn't grow and build up in there. Unfortunately, this window doesn't open. That would have been amazing, but tons of light comes in through here, so it's a really bright space. On the daily, we use this stand-up shower, which works perfectly. And I'm also one of those nerds who occasionally removes these screws and cleans down there. Go ahead and take a flashlight and look down a drain like that in the other homes that you're taking a look at. You will not be happy. Original vanity, yeah, it's kind of 1998-ish with gold. We've been slowly and steadily replacing all of the gold in the house with other stuff like this brushed bronze, but we never got around to the vanity. So it might be something that's important to you that you want to address. Nothing special over there that you need to know about. And lastly is the master closet. Some famous kid decor. Yeah, this is kind of a boring space, but it is spacious. The wire racks are original and do the job just fine. Put up a bunch of hooks here, turned on the lathe. And this is an 8 by 4.5 foot walk-in closet, if that is important to you. And we took the door off of it. I don't know why you'd want a door on a master closet in your master bedroom, but to each their own. All right, last thing to show you is the great outdoors. So I'm going to walk down there now with the kids, show you what we've done in the back, and just help you imagine a little bit how your family might be able to enjoy this backyard like ours has. So there are 3 ways to get up the tree houses, being demonstrated by my 3 lovely children. Little slow, Paul. And after this, we're going to take a look at the tires. All right, so as you come down in the forest, there is one of 2 trails to take. They've been leaf blown 4 years in a row, so they're well established. You come to the tire swing. So all of the swings you're going to see have been put up with outdoor rated arborist rope, rated for, I don't know, I think 1,800 pounds or something. So it's total overkill. This swing's been up about 3 years. I go on it regularly. It's very safe for kids and for adults. This stuff is way overkill, and eventually, in probably 20 years, the ropes will rot away. But they're nylon. They're meant for arborists, people who climb trees. They're rated for life-bearing loads, and so you should feel very safe with your kids playing back here. Now, because this property is built on a hill, which I used to hate, there's some really epic things you can do here with swings. And so the kids are at least 15 feet high on the far end of the swing there. So it's really fun. And when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And that's what we did with all of this slanted property. All right, let's go take a look at the green rings. This is the first of the so-called green rings. My littlest there, who's 8, is probably, 15 feet off the ground, the height there. Super fun. And for the record, no one's ever been hurt. Down the hill, we have the original green ring. All right, you guys gonna do double? Nice. Yeah, what's really cool about the hill and these really tall branches, you get a huge arc length. So the longer the rope is, basically the bigger the arc will be, which just makes the swinging really fun. And most adults who come over the house find themselves wanting to swing on them also. He's stranded. Oh no! Send it to him, Becca. Oh, so close. He's got to slither down in failure. Good job, buddy. Do like roundhouse ones, which is really fun. Look at that. Super cool. This is called the surfer kick. It's actually meant for one person to stand on, but they overbuild things for a reason. And that's because kids always find ways to come up with a creative idea. Nicely done. And I'll take you over to Rebecca's personal tree fort. Already. So they don't all have personal tree houses in the trees, but Rebecca does. And that's about 15 feet off the ground. She likes to go up there and do some reading. Nice, Bex. And then she can pull up that red rope so that nobody else can come. All right, Peter, this is your lean-to, right? Nice. You got hooks for rope and rations and all that kind of stuff. We're going to sleep out here one night. We haven't done that yet. And then show us your bear bag. Don't worry, folks. There's no bears. Just practice. Up, up, up it goes. Nice. Love it. And then why don't you real quick show me the slack line while you're there. It's not an official slack line, but it's been up for several years, and the kids have had a blast. So if you want that for your kids, just buy the house. It comes with it. This is a double swing. Don't worry, it's actually meant for this. And this one also goes to a branch very high up, so you get really big swings out of it. The arc length is really great. And then the newest swing here inside the fort, the yellow ring. This one's a little bit shorter. And then why don't you guys show me around the fort itself a little bit. It'll be hard to hear you because of the microphone, but we got some hammocks. We also have some of the old fencing, which is hard to see here, but it kind of creates a bit of a perimeter. The kids have also thought about filling it in with camouflage and stuff like that, but haven't got around to that yet. Got lots of logs to sit on. We have 2 fire pits there. They can be separated if you want to have 2 different fires for really big groups. And yeah, is there still a wanted sign up? You guys had a a wanted burglar or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Wanted. Okay, so we're on the lookout for
Careful.
that person. All right, Paulie, why don't you show me your fort? All right, Paul's got a little swing over here, but it doubles. Show them how it doubles as safety and security as you go up the rock climbers. There's a really cool burl up at the top here. We mounted a small can so he can store stuff. Nice. And then he has a shelter that he's working on. So yeah, you can see the trails that we blow to really keep it maintained. It helps the kids initially learn the perimeter of the property. And the last thing that will be better shown at night is all of these lights. We have a huge, probably 100 feet by 40-foot circle around here, which gets lit up at night when we turn on the switch. It's on a little remote, so that's really fun and just makes the space really special. Well, that's the final bit of the tour. My only regret is that I couldn't show you the beautiful forest in spring when there are many shades of green, or fall when it's red, orange, and yellow. It's just an amazing, beautiful piece of the property. And I hope that it's something you value, or you have someone in your life who might value it when they come to visit. So you're welcome to contact us via the phone number or Facebook Messenger. We're interested in taking showings right away. We have a pretty relaxed schedule on move-out date, so there's nothing really stressful going on for us. We're, again, moving out of the house into our van and traveling, so we're pretty relaxed and hopefully can accommodate your schedule and your desired move-in date. We'd like to be just kind of informal about negotiations. I mean, we'd like to see that you're pre-approved for lending. We'd like to put together a contract, of course, but we also just want to be really reasonable and open during the negotiation for what you might need or want. Try and be flexible, and really, we remember what it was like to buy a house. A little intimidating, a little scary, and so especially if you're a first-time homeowner, please feel free to just talk to us about whatever's going on, whatever your needs are, and hopefully we can come out with something that works out for your family and our family. In the meantime, God bless, and see you soon.